Thank you, Mr. Piyush Goyal, for joining us. As always, it's your date with the Times Network when we discuss the economy at the India Economic Conclave. Thank you very much for sparing time. On a day when we want to look at how India is going to get to the top three and fast track to the three is the theme of this summit. I want to ask you, Mr. Piyush Goyal, what's your vision? As before us, we were told that it's not ordained by God. We all have to work towards achieving the status of a number 5 or a number 3 economy as we plan to. How is the government looking at this, and what are the detailed plans to get to the top 3?
Well, I think it's commendable that Times Network in its 10th year is once again put together such a grand event to celebrate this journey of economic progress, and compliments to you, Vinitji, compliments to you, Subbu, Navika, and I wish this initiative all success in the years to come. It's been a journey, if one was to look back, of 77 years since independence now. We saw the early years right up to 91 when we followed the socialist path and landed up with a very staid Hindu rate of growth, as we used to call it, at about an average of 4%. Government would interfere in every aspect of economic activity, and entrepreneurship was left for a very few privileged persons. In the last 33 years is when we've really seen the country come of its own. Even within that, if you look at different periods of time, look at the 91 to 96 government of Mr. Narasimha Rao. Even though he was a Congress Prime Minister, sadly the Congress totally disowned him to the extent that they were not even willing to honor him with any award or honor him for the achievements, and for that matter disrespected him even in death. But he gave the first seeds of economic liberalization. Mr. Vajpayee from 98 to 2004 truly opened up the economy to entrepreneurship, to allowing people, and one of his biggest achievements would be the telecom revolution, would be the revolution in the IT space, which helped India come of age. And any reader of the Indian economy will note that every time the Congress or its allies came into government, we saw an era of low growth and high inflation. And every time the NDA, the BJP-led government came in, whether it was in 98 or it was in 2014, we inherited almost broken economies. Vajpayee inherited a very, very sad state of affairs, left behind a strong economy in 6 years, which was acknowledged by the then finance minister in his first speech in June or July of 2004, but left behind again after 10 years a country which had lost the gumption to grow, the confidence through a series of corruption scandals. Growth was down to 4%, inflation was largely in double digits during their regime. And once again, Mr. Modi had to literally start afresh, from building the confidence of the people, from building international relations and international investors' trust in India, and the people's own initiative to get into working hard to rebuild India. And Mr. Vaidyanathan very rightly pointed out, this 10-year journey has seen structural change, has seen the advent of digital technologies to the last man at the bottom of the pyramid, has seen the macroeconomy from a very weak spot, low forex reserves, low growth, high inflation, mood of the nation being very, very low, changing itself today to the world's fastest growing economy, the 5th largest, as was pointed out, high foreign exchange reserves, the fourth largest forex reserves in the world, strong banking sector, NPAs and restructured loans falling from 12 or 13% to about 2%, 2.5% now, and getting better by the day. In all aspects, we have on three principles worked in the last 10 years. A, building the macroeconomic structure of the economy to be a strong economy. B, ensuring infrastructure growth. As Mr. Vaidyanathan also pointed out, this infrastructure growth is across sectors. Ports, double the capacity. Airports, double the number of airports. Road and expressways across the country almost tripled in the last 10 years. Inland waterways, more than 100 new inland waterways started. Digital technology, 4G right up to the borders of India, 5G rolling out at the fastest pace in the world. In every way, we have seen an India emerging out of the shadows. The world today recognizes India as the best opportunity to invest in. FDI in the last 10 years has grown by 119% over the previous 10 years. 2/3 of the total FDI in India so far of $1 trillion has come in the last 10 years. And when you put all of this together, you see a nation full of confidence, aspiring to cross a $35 trillion economy. By 2047, the Viksit Bharat vision to become a prosperous nation, a developed nation. An economy where youngsters are willing to engage with the best across the world. We are making a mark with our goods, with our services. Exports will cross $800 billion this year and about $1 trillion in the next 2.5 years. Across the world today, there is a recognition that the best investment opportunity is in India. And I can assure you the government, through a series of initiatives, whether it's the large infrastructure rollout, whether it's the social welfare programs for inclusive growth and to empower our people, particularly our women, whom we believe as they come into the formal economy more and more will play a leading role in women-led development, in making sure that no child in the country is deprived of the basic amenities like food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, roads, electricity, cooking gas connection, toilets, digital connectivity. All the basic needs of life should be a must-have for every child born in this country, so that 1.4 billion people's dreams, their aspirations can be big. And that is what is driving and spurring the Indian growth story. India will grow on the pillar of rapid infrastructure growth. India will grow on the pillar of adopting technology and innovation. India will be a sustainable growth story. India will be an inclusive growth story. And we in government will act only as an enabler, as your friend. We'll work together shoulder to shoulder with business and economy to thrive. We'll allow the private sector to take forward initiatives, including in hitherto unexpected areas like space, where the private sector and our startups are doing some wonderful work. Our fintechs, our agri-techs, our biotech, each sector is holding the nation in the highest esteem across the world. Countries across the world recognize that the market that India offers, demand of 1.4 billion aspirational Indians, is enviable. They recognize that democracy, the rule of law, ensures fair play. They recognize that a young population with an average age of 28, 29 years, expected to be young for the next 30 years, will provide talent, will provide skill. They recognize that decisive leadership that this country has, amongst the only countries, Navika ji, which in 23 and 24 has repeated a government. Amongst the democratic world, we saw 60% of the world's population under democracies go to polls in the last 2 years. Rarely have governments been repeated, and I can't remember a government repeated the third time. And that is what Prime Minister Modi has brought to the nation. Confidence and belief in the India story. There may be a few naysayers who, along with their friends across the borders, may try to undermine the India growth story. But I can assure you, Navika ji, whether it's the people of Haryana or the people of Maharashtra, now the people of Rajasthan or the people of UP, they recognize that थोड़ी चूक हो गई पिछली बार और उमड़ के बाहर निकले इस बार. मोदी जी को संदेश देने हम आपके साथ खड़े हैं.
I always, take away as a journalist who's covered the decade of the 90s. I started my journalism in 1990. So we've seen the P.V. Narasimha Rao years. We've seen the Vajpayee years. We've seen the United Front government's 2 phases of it. And then we've seen the UPA years and now the NDA years. I would like to compliment your government for the scale on which it operates. The scale of victories in 2014, 2019, and now in Maharashtra are testament to the scale at which you operate. Your first answer is also reminiscent of the scale at which you operate, because you covered everything 360 degrees without my asking a question. So let me come straight to the politics of it, because you seem to love politics. Economics, I think you've covered everything in the first answer. So let me ask you, is policy making now going to shift to the scale of this convention center, Bharat Mandapam, where you've had a key role to play in getting this place up to speed for the G20 summit? I want to ask you, because no policy making, no debates, no discussions happen in Parliament. We're seeing even today, probably the 14th day that Parliament is seeing drama, theatre, but not too much of policy discussion. Do you think media houses like ours, conclaves like ours, should offer a platform for debate on policy? Because Parliament, they blame you, you blame them, but we're not seeing too much of forward movement.
No, I think it's brilliant that organizations like Times Network is bringing to the fore issues before the country, engaging with the people of India, giving us valuable feedback. Look at the way Prime Minister Modi works. This convention center was conceptualized by him about 7 years ago, and 2018, 6.5 years ago. And I remember what was the vision behind it. And I'll share that with you for particularly the young persons who are listening to this conversation to understand how Prime Minister Modi thinks. He said that if we have to showcase to the world India's strengths, we will need to have the MICE sector come to India in a big way. That's meetings, conventions, seminars, exhibitions. And if we are looking at the MICE sector coming to India in a big way, it can't be done in the tents that used to host India International Trade Fair at Pragati Maidan, this venue, prior to 2023. They had to move out of tents into modern facilities. And one facility also may not be enough. So simultaneously in 18, not only did he start rejuvenating this venue to make it a world-class convention center and a world-class exhibition center, the Bharat Mandapam, he also conceptualized Yashobhumi, which is at Dwarka, right up to having an underground metro station going inside Yashobhumi. So from the airport, you can be at Yashobhumi in 7 minutes. With 100-hectare large plot of land, a huge convention center, actually somewhat bigger than this, huge exhibition halls. Idea being that the world should come to India, world should experience the India story, and world should know the scale at which India is developing. Now friends, when we hold, let's say, Bharat Mobility, which is going to be held 2 months from now at this venue and at Yashobhumi and the Noida Convention Center, because even with 2 we are running out of space. We are putting together everything in India on mobility at one time, at one platform. No more do people have to go to Hanover or Germany to witness what the world offers. India will be that one-stop shop. Everything on mobility you can find at one point of time in India. Bharat Tex, it's going to be held here and at Noida. Bharat Tex is the world's largest exhibition cum conference on the textile sector. And it's appropriate it should be in India. Can you imagine the world's biggest food fair used to be held in Dubai, which doesn't produce anything except dates. Dates as in khajur. Galatfahmi na ho jaye. But now we are starting to host large food fairs. We'll have Ahar coming up soon. After that, the World Food Fair. And now we are competing within the country with 2 World Food Fair and Aadhaar, fighting to see what will be bigger. We encourage competition. We encourage showcasing to the world the scale at which India operates. And that's where Prime Minister thinks big, thinks bold, and thinks audacious. And I think it's time, if I can use from that old phrase, some of us in this room may remember, Navika ji, if you recall, there was that big, hairy, audacious goals. BHAG. Bhag. And that is what India is today. Big, hairy, audacious goals. And I urge the youngsters who are watching Times Now or ET Now, जब भारत की दास्तान चली है विकसित भारत बनने के लिए, तो हमें भागना नहीं है. भाग can have 2 meanings. भाग could be you run away. हमें भागना नहीं है, हमें उसमें भाग लेना है. We have to participate in this Viksit Bharat journey. And that is what Prime Minister Modi is encouraging Indians to do.
और भाग के top 3 पर जाना है. But you've ducked my question. Okay, I'll come straight to the point. Parliament कब चलेगी?
जब माननीय राहुल गांधी जी जो लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन है और माननीय मल्लिकार्जुन खड़गे जी जो राज्यसभा में लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन है, वो इस बात को समझेंगे कि पार्लियामेंट डिबेट, डिस्कशन, डायलॉग का एक मौका है, एक प्लेटफॉर्म प्रोवाइड करता है जिसमें आधार के बेसिस पे कोई ना कोई मुद्दों के मूल जड़ में जाके चर्चा होती है, बजाय के सिर्फ थिएट्रिक्स करना, बजाय के जो पीठ के ऊपर बैठे हैं, अध्यक्ष बैठे हैं, उनके ऊपर टीका टिप्पणी करना, बजाय के कोई एक विषय को लेके देश को गुमराह करने की कोशिश करना. मैं समझता हूं ठोस मुद्दों के ऊपर, ठोस लेजिस्लेशन के ऊपर, देश हित में उठाए गए कदमों के ऊपर सहमति भी कई बार हो सकती है. मुझे याद है जब हम भी विपक्ष में थे, कई ऐसे विषय थे जो देश हित में हम पूरी तरीके से सरकार के साथ सहमति के साथ खड़े रहते थे. ये तो आज मैं पहली बार देख रहा हूं गत कुछ वर्षों में कि इतनी विफल है विपक्ष का नेतृत्व कि देश हित को तो किनारे रख के विपक्षी ताकतों के साथ अपने आप को जोड़ के अपने ही देश को, विदेश में जाके भी अपने ही देश को बुरा भला कहते हैं, अपने ही युवा युवती साथियों को बुरा भला कहते हैं, अपने ही देश की विकास यात्रा पर संदेह उठाते हैं, अपने ही देश में हुए अच्छे कामों को नकारने की कोशिश करते हैं. मैं समझता हूं इससे भद्दी सोच मैंने कभी जिंदगी में कोई देश में नहीं देखी है. विश्व भर में एक सहमति रहती है कि देश के बाहर हम सब देश का गुणगान करते हैं, हम सब देशवासी एक होते हैं. ये पहला एक इंस्टेंस देश के समक्ष है जब उच्च स्तरीय नेता बाहर जाके अपने ही देश के बुरा भला कहते हैं कि देश में बोलने की आजादी नहीं है. आज के दिन आप देख रहे हैं सब जगह किस प्रकार से झूठ के आधार पर वो इस पूरे देश में लोगों को गुमराह करने की कोशिश करते हैं. मुझे लगता है कि समय आ गया है कि जिस प्रकार से महाराष्ट्र ने, हरियाणा ने, देश ने तीसरी बार मोदी जी को मौका दिया है सेवा करने का, अगर ये इसी प्रकार से चले और उन्होंने जिस प्रकार से हिमाचल, कर्नाटक, तेलंगाना में एक फेल्ड सरकारी मॉडल चलाया है, इस तरीके से चला तो गांधी जी की बात शायद सच हो जाएगी कि कांग्रेस वास्तव में अपने आप को बंद करने के करार पर पहुंच जाएगी.
But according to the opposition, the onus to run parliament is on the government. It's on the treasury benches. It is the government which is disrupting the house. That is the charge on the government.
Wait, there is no GST on alleging any false charges. So I think they may jolly well say that, but every time we are discussing any issue, every time there's question hour or 0 hour, every time a legislation is under consideration, if they are going to be fixated on false narratives and fake stories, I think beyond a point, the people of India are also frustrated with the sort of cheap theatrics and allegations. You have seen the kind of behavior that leaders of the opposition have shown outside and inside Parliament. You have seen that they themselves are not united in their approach. The entire India alliance has a broken and fragmented thought process and agenda. So really very difficult to run Parliament when one opposition party runs on one tangent, others who may even want to run the Parliament are left helpless, and across the opposition, I think there is discordancy and complete breakdown of trust within themselves. In such a situation, it becomes very difficult for any system to work. And therefore, we have to come to platforms like the Times Economic Conclave to express the confidence that we have in the country, and on your behalf, express to the world that 1.4 billion Indians stand united to see India as a great country, as a prosperous country. We stand united to face any challenges that we may encounter. We stand united to convert every challenge into an opportunity to grow better, faster, more sustainably and more inclusively.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, let me ask you, maybe with the Congress, there seems to be a breakdown in communication. But can you not speak to the other opposition leaders in the Parliament to at least have some semblance of order? Because the ask to get to the top three will require policies, debates on policies, changes in policies, bills to be passed. Is there no breakthrough? And if I can be a fly on the wall, what comes out of your meetings with some of the other opposition leaders?
Well, frankly, what you see on television happening in Parliament, and sometimes the mockery being made by Mr. Rahul Gandhi and some of his colleagues on the steps of Makardwar, are really an exception. Once the cameras are switched off, normally there's a very healthy discussion also with the members of Parliament. Most opposition members individually want the House to run. They want to speak about their issues. They want to make special mentions and talk in 0 hour of areas of concern in their constituencies, in their states. There are members of Parliament who wish to have a very informed and very cultured debate on various issues before the House. Sadly, they are left to the mercy of a few leaders who, obviously, because they come from a particular family, and these parties usually can't get out of that family rule, they are left helpless outside the Parliament or in the canteen or in other conversations when we meet in committees. They are always wanting Parliament to do better, but sadly they are helpless before a very uninformed leadership, a very immature leadership, which they have landed themselves up with.
Your message to Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Mr. Kharge today?
Well, I think I had not expected a seasoned politician like Mr. Kharge to behave and speak the language that he does. I would have expected him to conduct himself in a far more distinguished manner. It's very sad that he's taken the proceedings of Parliament to a depth where even the chair has to admonish him. And if the chair has to admonish him or some of his colleagues for their irrational behavior. Now they convert that to say that the chair is attacking us or passing comments on us. Obviously, if you behave in that manner, and you've seen the kind of comments, the kind of interruptions that we find repeatedly from the opposition side, anybody who's sitting on the chair is bound to get frustrated and is bound to at least make an appeal that everybody talks rationally and behaves better. I think Mr. Kharge is also the party president. I think there's a one-man, one-post rule, but probably he doesn't want to leave any of these
Not
two
applicable
posts.
in your party either at this point.
Where is that so?
Mr. JP Nadda is the
We are in the
president.
process of elections and therefore it got
that
delayed.
we've been hearing for
we
a
gave
while.
an extension and now the party elections are started. Probably take another month and a half before the new president gets elected. We are a democratic party. We run through a democratic system. We don't foist anybody as president basis the demands of one family. In our party, the workers and the party machinery, from the bottom up, from the level of our mandals, and for that matter, even below that, from the panchayats, the party builds up. And by the way, we have the world's largest political party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, through a digital process with photograph and mobile number, name, address, digitally capturing image of the person also on his own mobile, has more than 12 crore registered members of the BJP, the world's largest democratic party.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you, does the last quarter's growth number worry you? What is the reason and can we improve upon this? Are we looking at meeting our targets for growth in the current year?
Well, I think governments don't run quarter se quarter tak like the ET Now channel. For us, governments work in consistency in the long run. We had an election in the first quarter. During election, obviously, policy making and decisions on the next steps on growth or infrastructure spending does slow down. And there is a lag effect. But from what the initial numbers for this quarter, the third quarter show, the festive spending, the rebound in rural growth, the way banks are now seeing traction back again, the way infrastructure spending has come back on track, I think by the time we close the year in March, we'll be back on track. The Reserve Bank has estimated, IMF, Moody's, Reserve Bank, all estimate about 7% growth. This year will continue to be the world's fastest growing economy, despite such global challenges. And I can assure all the viewers of Times Now that India is in it for the long haul. We are looking at edging up our growth story. We are looking at building better and better infrastructure. As we go along, we are looking at engaging with the most modern technologies. Innovation will define India's growth story. We'll soon have a 1 lakh crore Anusandhan NRF being the guidelines being announced. And by the way, when we give 1 lakh crore government support for R&D or innovation, it actually translates to research or innovation worth 10 lakh crores. Because that same research done in Switzerland, with whom we've now done a free trade agreement, the same research done in Switzerland or Norway or Europe will cost 10 times more. What outcomes we can get with 1 lakh crore, they will need 10 lakh crores to get that. Therefore, the EFTA countries, Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein and Iceland, not only have they done an FTA with us, as a part of the free trade agreement, they have committed to invest $100 billion, 8.5 lakh crore, as FDI. Doesn't include Norway pension funds, FII investments in the stock market. FDI of 8.5 lakh crores, creating 1 million, 10 lakh jobs directly, which means about 40-50 lakh jobs, direct and indirect. And it's the first FTA ever in the world history where an FTA is not about goods and services alone, but a linked investment, because they recognize that India is the future, India is the growth story, with an aging population in the developed world, with slow growth. Growth in Europe is less than 1% this year. At best, it'll go to 2 or 3%. They'll double their economy in the next 30 years. We'll go 8 to 10 times in terms of our economy in the next 30 years. So that's the huge delta of opportunity. All those who lose out on it do it at their own risk and cost and peril. Those who believe in the opposition model of disruption and discordant notes that you hear from the different parties in the opposition, the negativity that you hear from the opposition is not going to hold back this country. We are committed, Navika ji, whether it is passing the Waqf bill so that fairness and sanity comes into this country's policy, whether it's passing the One Nation, One Election bill so that we are rid of this continuous model code of conduct holding back the nation's growth and policy making and governments getting into sleep mode again and again 3 times over across the country, for the parliament, for the assembly, then for the local bodies. These are structural changes which are good for India. We stand committed to making them happen. And we know we have the blessings of our elders and the support of our young friends in this country. Across the country, people want good governance. They want honest governance. They want progress. They want prosperity. And that is what Mr. Modi brings to the table.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Piyush Goyal. While the government takes care of the economic funds for growth, I propose setting up an innovation fund for political ideas to break the logjam, and we'll start doing that. Conclave se conclave tak, 10th edition of the India Economic Conclave. Thank you very much for being present with us for the 10th time. Thank you, Mr. Piyush Goyal. We complete 10 years and you've been part of this journey each of those 10 years. Thank you very much.